Utah up here to Idaho to visit
Yeah, the
their
Lindsays.
sister,
Yeah.
and they were like cousins, you know.
Yeah.
But they weren't really blood cousins, but
They were like
they
cousins.
were like cousins because of the connection of the two sisters, and so they come visit as a family. When he grew up, he was going to marry Jenny, and he did. And this is what's so cute. When they finally moved up here.
We gotta turn this on. Don't go telling too much here. And you'll have to back up just a tiny bit, and we'll catch this. Now let me hit record. Are you ready? When you're ready.
Well, I'm sure this is written somewhere.
That's all right. I want to hear you say it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Go.
Well, we're here looking at this picture of great-grandma Williams, Les's mother, and her sister Annette, who was the stepmother of Grandma Jenny. And we're talking about the families knowing each other and getting together as children, and Grandpa Williams always said he was going to marry Jenny when he grew up.
I'm going to just quick show that picture. This is the picture we're talking about of the two sisters. The one on the left is Alfreda, Grandpa's grandmother, and the one on the right is Annette, or Aunt Nettie, who was the stepmother. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, later on, the Alfreda and Joseph Williams moved to Idaho, and so Grandpa was going to the same school as Grandma, and I think that was in Moreland. I'm not sure.
Is it the one over here? No, probably not.
Anyway, whatever school it was, Grandpa had ridden his horse to school that morning, and when it was time to go home, he wanted to walk Jenny home, and he completely forgot about his horse. He walked her all the way home, then remembered he had a horse at school,
And had to walk
all the way back and get his horse.
Oh yeah, I had a horse. He was Twitter-pated.
and when they were first, well, he would write to Grandma, and he would write, "Dear friend." His letters were so romantic. "Dear friend."
Oh.
What a wonderful, wonderful heritage
Yes.
they gave us.
Well, you were talking about when we ran out of tape, Grandpa Rice and his mission, and and then Grandma Rice.
Oh, yeah. At the same time that Grandpa was on his mission, there were 5 missionaries, fathers, in their ward on missions at the same time. And we have a picture of all those missionary widows and their children.
There's a huge picture of lots of people.
It's quite a group of ladies and their children
Yes.
whose husbands were all on missions at the same time. They lived in Garland. But after Grandpa lost his hand, he had a hard time getting a job and doing manual work. And he didn't farm after that, only I'm not sure how much.
Life would be hard.
Sometime after that, they moved to Lost River. I'm trying to think if it was Leslie, Moore. What's another town, what little town up in that area?
Darlington.
Well, I think that's where they moved. They were up there for a while, and then I guess farming was just too much for him, and they came back and they run a laundry in Logan, and Mother was there trying to help with the laundry. And that's one reason why she never continued, I don't think she even graduated from 8th grade. I'm not sure how many years beyond grade school that she got, but I know she was trying to help out with the family, and they had this laundry that she worked in the laundry. I don't know too much beyond that. When I was a little girl, both sets of my grandparents lived on the same street. It was Patterson Avenue in Ogden. The Robertson grandparents lived in the last house up next to the hill, and Grandma Rice lived about a half a block away. I don't know how that happened, but we actually lived in that house on that same street when John was born. And Mother had a C-section when John was born, and she had a real bad back. They kept her in bed for a month, and when she came home, she couldn't walk. She'd been in bed too long, and she had many treatments and trips to the chiropractor before she was able to walk. But I just remember, as a little 4-year-old, her coming home from the hospital, and how happy I was to see her. Didn't care about that new baby. I'm just glad to see my mother. But it wasn't too much longer after that we moved over on 17th Street with the big yard and the fruit trees and the big garden and all that.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Your mother had a hard time physically.
She did have a hard time physically, but she was determined. She was so sure that if she could just eat right, she'd get better, and she did. It's amazing. Amazing. I remember as a child, she was sick a lot. Bad headaches. She would catch every flu and whatever came around. She was sick a lot. As time went on, sickness got less and less, and she got
stronger
and better, because she did really take care of her health.
She lost her first baby, didn't she?
She lost her first baby, and it was a girl.
Oh, I didn't.
I would have had a sister. She carried it full time, but it was born dead. It was stillborn about 2 weeks
Before
she delivered. And then James was born, and she had a hard time delivering him. So when I was born, they forced labor, took me early. And their methods of forcing were
cruel and inhumane.
Cruel and inhumane, yes. So then when John was born, she said, of course the doctor told her, now you mustn't do this again. You're just not strong enough. And she said when she found out she was pregnant with John, she went to the doctor and she was in tears. She said, will you take me back? And he was very compassionate and told her it was going to be okay. But then they fixed it so she couldn't have it anymore after that, because it was just...
It did risk her life, didn't it?
She was lucky to live through it.
So her back problems, was that her entire life or just later? Because I know she struggled.
It was probably most of her life, and she had a knee when she was probably junior high age or late grade school. She was playing basketball and injured her knee, and the kneecap came off. and it weakened that knee to the point that it would come off all the time.
Yeah, I remember her
And
trying to put it back on. Ooh,
yeah,
that was awful. Poor Grandma.
it was. But it did get stronger. I mean, she wore a brace on it for a long time, and finally my dad said to her one day, you know, if you wear that brace all the time, you'll never get stronger. You've got to get rid of the brace and help it to get stronger. And it really did help when she got rid of the brace. And I don't remember those later years her having any problem with that. It was partly due to the fact that she was eating so much better than she had as a young person.
Right. Well, why wasn't they? Was it because of a lack of food? That's why they weren't eating really well?
My grandmother didn't like vegetables.
Oh.
Grandpa Rice would bring. He'd go out in the yard and in the farm, and he'd gather pigweeds. You know what they're? They're actually amaranth.
Oh. Oh, really?
But the greens are like spinach. And he'd gather these pigweeds. They called them pigweeds. I don't know why. Have nothing to do with pigs. But he'd gather these and bring them in, and Grandma would throw them out.
Oh. She didn't understand.
And Mother was sickly as a child. She had bad headaches. She said her dad used to hold her head and just try to do something to help her. And she had bad headaches, and she was sick all the time. She'd have sores on her lips that would crack and bleed, and they wouldn't heal all winter. And at one point, when she was grown, a young woman, she had really bad tonsils. And the doctor said, oh, we really need to take those out, but she's a bleeder and we don't dare. Well, why was she a bleeder? Why did she have bad tonsils? They never thought that maybe your diet had anything to do with it.
She's missing something in her diet, isn't she?
Yeah. And then, after she'd lost her first baby, she was reading some articles in the newspaper that came out on nutrition, and it just, the light turned on in her head, something she hadn't known before, and she just was hungry for knowledge to learn more about that, and she really believed it, and she, in a way, kind of went over backwards, trying to. She said, well, my children are going to have better than that. And so we had 100% whole wheat, no white bread, vegetables. We had to eat vegetables. We didn't have cake except on our birthday. She didn't make cookies, and later
she
on.
She did,
later
with
on.
carrots.
That was later.
Carrots and green beans in them, I remember. Green beans and cookies.
No.
Well, they're sweet. I remember, I loved her cookies. She had
made
honey and molasses and
bananas,
and she made them taste, they were good.
But, in the early days, she just didn't make things like that. We used to walk home for lunch from school. We lived a mile, so we walked to school in the morning, we walked home for lunch, we just had time to eat, and turn around and go back to school. But we went home for lunch every day, and she'd have vegetable soup and, just
all kinds of delicious
all
stuff.
Good homemade stuff, homemade bread, and wonderful. I don't remember any particular meal. They were all vegetables. Every kind of vegetable you could have, we got them.
Even the pigweed?
Yeah, we had pigweeds in our yard.
What do they look like? I don't know what a pigweed is.
They look a little bit like those red weeds, only they're not red. There's no, the weeds.
Do you have them in the yard now?
I haven't seen any for a long time.
Huh.
I guess, I don't know. I'd like to plant some amaranth and to see if that's what it turns out, because I heard that the amaranth
Is the
seed
same.
is the seed for the pigweeds.
Interesting.
But anyway,
Here you had this food in your yard. I mean,
Growing wild.
Grandpa Rice, and he would bring it in. Because I think he probably had a sense that they needed
well, he
it.
liked that kind of, he liked things like that. But Grandma didn't. She,
Well, some people don't like vegetables. That's all there is to it.
yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway,
I remember I was so surprised to find out that Grandpa Robertson snuck out and had donuts. When I found that out, it was like breaking the word of wisdom. It was a big deal. I was so surprised.
well, that's
he
because he preached.
Hell. He preached
But
hell.
he had such a sweet tooth.
And Grandma never made it for him. He had to sneak out.
Not only donuts, but pop
Oh, I didn't know about the pop. I really, Grandpa, I can't believe you.
and candy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Those soft
He
drinks.
had such a sweet tooth.
Well, he could get it and Grandma would never know, really.
Right.
She did.
Especially when they had the store there. And Grandpa, oh yeah, we have to tell this. Grandpa would go down to the store. He built a store for the Petersons, Lyle and Lyle's brother George.
Hmm.
Built this store to start with, and Grandpa built the building, and they rented it from him. And later on, the Petersons sold it, but Grandpa still owned the store. So
The building, yeah.
he would go down there and collect the produce that they threw out to take to the cows. But before it got to the cows, Grandma went through it with a fine-tooth comb and picked out everything that was good that they could use. Grapes, grapefruit, oranges, cabbages, lettuce, you name it. Lots of really good stuff. That just, or they get a new shipment in and they
have to
keep
get
the
rid of the
fresh
old
and get
stuff.
rid of the old, and it wasn't that old, it was still good. And they pretty much lived on that. They didn't ever have to go to the grocery store. But Grandpa was always down to the store for one thing or another, and it's so handy for him to pick up the things he liked. The Grandma didn't furnish him.
I'll tell the story about when she was given chocolate.
Oh, well, there was some cake mixes that came down that were packages just broken a little bit.
Oh, and you can't serve it. I mean, sell it.
So she wasn't about to use it, even though it was still intact, except for this little break in the package. And then at first she thought, well, now who can I give this to? And then she said, there isn't anybody I hate bad enough to give this to.
To her it was poison.
Yes, to her it was poison.
Chocolate or the fact that it was broken?
No, chocolate. Or anything not good for you.
Yeah,
Oh.
So what did she do with it?
threw it out.
Yeah.
She absolutely threw that out.
She didn't mind throwing it out.
No. But we were beneficiaries of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
She would pick over the grapes and get rid of anything that was, not good. And then she'd wash them really good, and she always had grapes to eat, and I'd go over there and she'd say, here, do you want to take these home? Oh, sure.
Yeah.
There'd be grapefruit and oranges and grapes. And
We had lots of good food because of it. I remember picking raspberries.
Oh, she had so many raspberries and strawberries.
Big patch. Huge patch.
way bigger than they needed.
Yes.
And she was doing it for us, too.
We'd go over there and she'd give us our little container and tie it around our waist. And I think for every 5 in my mouth, one went into went into the little container. But we picked for a long time. I remember going and picking and felt like, will this ever end?
Yeah, such a long row.
But I was happy to do it because it tasted so good while I was picking. They just tasted like candy, just so sweet and so good. And then we'd go home and she'd give us a big thing just loaded with them.
Yeah. She'd give us what we picked plus a lot more.
A lot more. And she had this little bonnet.
Oh, and the carrot juice.
Oh yeah, the carrot juice and the tiger milk. She had this little bonnet.
Pioneer bonnet.
Pioneer looking bonnet, yeah, it looked just like a pioneer
I
bonnet.
have 2 of those.
You still have her bonnets?
No, I don't have hers.
Oh, you just have a bonnet that looks like it.
When our ward went on the trek, Ruth Hepworth made a lot of bonnets for the people who were going on the trek. And I heard that she made them, so I asked her if she had a pattern that I could borrow to make one, and she said, "Oh, I'll make it for you."
Oh,
so she
cool.
made me one, and then she said, "Oh," after she got it made, she said, "That's too big for you. I'll make another one that's smaller." So she made another one, but she gave me both of them.
Oh.
So I have a bigger one and a smaller one.
I just remember her out there in this bonnet to keep
Yeah.
her skin. Ladies were smarter than they are today.
Well,
Keeping the sun off
Gotta
your face
protect
was
your
what they did.
she was kind of dark-skinned, and she didn't want to be one speck darker than she was.
But ladies knew to keep the sun off their faces.
Well, I don't think she did it other than to just keep from getting too dark.
They liked fair skin. That was popular back then.
Well, that's more of a story to that than what meets the eye. Her father, Hiram, had a sister, adopted sister, who was an Indian. And this Indian girl she was found on a battlefield after there had been some kind of a battle. And the mother was dead, and the baby, some fellows, found this baby in the mother's arms, and the baby was still alive, and the mother was dead. Everybody else was dead. And they said, "We can't just leave this baby here. What are we going to do with it?" And somebody said, "Well, take it to Sister Rice. She'll take it."
She already had 11, right?
Yeah, they already had 11 children, or 12, I don't. And so she did. She took the baby and raised it, and her name was Annie. Well, I don't think Mother knew her they didn't have a lot of contact with her, so that Mother really knew her. But she had an uncle or distant relative of some kind. His name was Wilcox. And he would say to Mother, when she was just a little girl, "Why, George Irene, you look just like your Aunt Annie."
And that made her
And knowing
embarrassed.
that she was an Indian, Mother thought she didn't want to look like her Aunt Annie. Because she was darker than the rest of the family.
Sure.
And so that's what made her
Conscious of it, huh?
conscious. She'd look at blonde girls or people with beautiful complexions like yours, and "Oh, I wish I had a complexion like that. I wish I had that peach and cream complexion."
And yet she didn't have dark skin.
It wasn't real dark.
Was it more like mine, where it just browns easy?
Uh-huh.
Rather than
But she had really dark brown eyes,
Oh,
and her hair was dark brown.
okay. That makes a difference too.
And I suppose as a child, running around outside, she would get pretty brown.
Yeah.
And so,
That embarrassed her, didn't it?
yeah,
To think
it
you
made
were
her,
dark.
that made her not want to be dark.
To avoid the sun.
Yeah. At least she used to tell me that all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've heard these stories. I've been
Well, I'm
relating.
glad because now you can share them with us. Because I've heard some, but that doesn't mean I heard them the way you heard them, you know?
Uh-huh. Oh, and when I went back to school after Bill died, and all my children were in school except for the baby, Bill. Mother took care of him. She loved him so much.
Oh, of course.
All of you kids. In fact, she wrote my history in the letters she wrote to Uncle John. Because we were her only family that was here close. So everything the children did, I'd call Mother and tell her. Anything happened, I'd go into the phone, have to call Mother and tell her about that. You know, kids did something cute or they did whatever.
And she wrote your history.
And she wrote it. And she wrote it in letters to my brother John. So there's my history right there. Anyway,
Did John ever give you a copy of it when he transcribed the letter?
some of them.
Because we still need to get those, don't we?
I have some of them. But I'll have to look them up for you. I was headed somewhere and I can't remember where.
Well, you were saying how the stories that she would tell, and she took care of Billy after Dad died and you went back. Either to
Oh, I was
school or
going to tell a story about Bill.
Okay.
And how Mother loved to talk about when she was a little girl. And she'd tell Bill all about the things she did and how they played and the work they did. And this one day she was telling him how they used to travel in the wintertime. And they would get a big rock and put it in the oven and get it hot, and then they'd put it at their feet and put blankets around them to keep them warm in their wagon as they were going. And, well, Grandma, why didn't you take the car? Well, we didn't have one, she'd say. But Grandma, why didn't you get one?
Why didn't you go out and buy you one? Because there weren't any to buy.
They weren't invented yet. It's hard to imagine the changes that have taken place in her lifetime and then in my lifetime.
And then in ours.
Just things are changing so fast now. It's not from year to year, it's from day to day.
It is hard to imagine what their life really was like, isn't it? We don't really have any idea. I remember when I was talking to the grandparents, and it was your dad, and I said to him, what did you do for fun? And he said, we worked. We turned work into fun, but we worked. It was that or you don't eat. And for some strange reason that hadn't even occurred to me that would be it. Because my life was playing. I went out and played. Yes, I had to do some chores, but I played. I played and played and played. That was my childhood. And then he said, you just didn't go to the store and get anything. You had a few items you could buy at the store, but you had to make it yourself or make do. And I remember thinking, what? There were no real stores like Walmart and restaurants and no McDonald's, I didn't really fathom that one. But you know what I mean? I just was, really? So
There was, that up on the old highway at Kimball, there used to be a store.
Yes, I remember.
The building's still there. That was the closest store that they had.
Clear out there. Now, the store that you said that he built, that was the grocery store for the Petersons, is that building still exists, doesn't it?
Yeah, the building's still there.
That's what I thought. I know where it's at.
It's not a grocery store anymore.
No,
There was
it's
a
like a-
printing store for
it's
a
a
while,
laundry
and
or
now
something.
it's that Alsco.
Yeah, the laundry. They do industrial
Yeah.
cleaning for companies.
Yeah, the building's still there.
I wondered if that was the same building. Because when I was aware of it, it was still a grocery store when I was a kid. And then it suddenly became a printing office or something. Was it a bowling alley too, or that's just down the road?
No, there's a bowling alleys
Yeah.
beyond there.
Yeah. Go ahead, just keep going. I can't think of a thing.
I can't think of anything either.
We've covered a lot of wonderful history and stories, and it's been sweet. Well, like you said, Grandma Robertson took care of us a lot. I don't know if a lot is the right word, but I remember her either being here or we were there, and she played with us. And in fact, I remember her sitting on these stairs just outside this back door and teaching me how to tie my shoes. She was the one that showed me how to do it, and I remember her sitting there very patiently. I'd do it, and she'd show me how to do it. I was thrilled to be able to tie my own shoes, but I just remember it being Grandma Robertson.
That must have been when she was out here after it had a baby or something. Maybe
Roger,
when
maybe?
Roger was born, or
Yeah.
that would be about the right timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first went back to school, she thought she had to come out here and take care of you guys, but I told her no, she didn't have to do that. You kids were big enough to help, and really all I needed was somebody to take care of Bill during the day. Billy.
Yeah.
Mark. We called him Mark.
Little Billy. Yeah.
When I came out of the temple at Rexburg the other day, parked right next to me was a Brother Driscoll from Aberdeen. A younger brother of Mike's, I think.
Oh, he's the baby.
He said his name, but I don't remember what he said. He was married to a Pilatus. Donna Pilatus is...
I think it's a nephew because Mike is the baby of the family.
Oh.
So it might be a nephew.
Nephew. But he came around and he said, I noticed your 4B license. And he said, what's your name? I told him, and he said, oh. He said, you're the Mrs. Williams that has the son that plays the violin. And I said, yes, that's right. He says, I have to put my arm around you and give you a hug. He said, you're just a special lady. Because of Bill, I guess.
Or just a special lady.
Because I was Bill's mother.
Only because you're Bill's mother. Yeah, that's it. Well, you are a special lady. Well, okay, so...
You want to turn that off?
No, I want to ask you one more.
Oh, okay.
It's a hard subject, but when Dad died, if you wouldn't mind sharing the day of and just some of your memories. If you can, I'll understand.
Well, it is hard to lose somebody that close to you. But the gospel is such a marvelous blessing in our lives that it helps you get through I had so many blessings, so many helps. One of the first things I did was go to the scriptures and start studying the scriptures more. And of course, I had your wonderful grandparents, 2 sets of them, who were such wonderful, wonderful helps. I was blessed in that I didn't have to go out to work right away. In fact, when I finally decided to quit going to school and stay home and just take my piano students, that was really all the extra help I needed for income, because I had the income from my farm and then later on inherited more land from Grandma and Grandpa Williams. So I was really blessed that way, that I didn't have to go out and try to make a living.
It was better for us too, to have you here and not gone.
Well, I was gone to school and all that.
No, I mean, that it didn't last. You were gone a lot.
Yeah, I taught that 1 year and it was so hard.
I remember you being so discouraged. You'd come home in tears sometimes. Just
yeah, I just
didn't know
wondered
what
how
to
I
do.
could go back another day.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. It wasn't the right thing for me to do, but I guess I had to try it to
You
find
had to
that
know.
out.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done if I'd had to go out to work. I had done office work there at the county agent's office, but I wasn't really good at it. It wasn't something that...
You probably didn't enjoy it as much either, did you?
Well, I enjoyed what I did, but I did the easier jobs. You know, I didn't, like I said, I didn't do any accounting, or I wasn't the main one responsible. I was just a side help.
Yeah.
So I was blessed that I didn't have to do that.
Oh, we never talked about any of the callings you had in the church. What were some of the ones that were most memorable to you that you had? I know you were organist, because I had to take care of Bill. You were sitting up there playing the organ. And
I played the organ when we first had to go to the Thomas First Ward. But mostly I was directing music.
Oh.
I really enjoyed the Relief Society choir that I directed. When I was on the Stake Relief Society board, I really enjoyed that a lot. I was on the primaries. It's funny that I was on the stake primary 2 different times, but I never taught a primary class or led music in primary. Only once for a short time. Just it seemed kind of odd, but that's the way it was. One time I was the nursery leader for the, maybe it was the nursery, I had the 3-year-olds,
Oh,
but I was on the stake. I'd never done it in the ward, but they asked me to be on the stake board to do that. And then Catherine Katsianis asked me to be a counselor in the stake primary when she was the president.
you did a lot of stake callings, didn't you?
Yeah. So I was on the Stake Relief Society and the Stake Primary. And I was the ward Young Women's president in Riverside.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Barbara Anderson was one of my counselors. You weren't in Young Women's yet, I guess.
Probably not.
Or
I would
you'd
have been.
remember probably.
When we moved into the Thomas building, it was like my first or second year as what they call Beehive now, those first years. I think I was just getting into the second year. So, no, I wasn't in Young Women's in Riverside except for just a short time before we moved, and you probably were not in it at that point.
No. I remember in that calling, we were always making money for girls' camp.
I still do that, Mother.
We'd have this food sales and what do they call it? We made candy and cakes and
Yeah.
stuff and sold them. That's the only time in my life I ever made candy. I made more candy during that time.
Wow.
It was terrible for me to make candy.
Make it all.
I'm like my dad, I have a sweet tooth. If I'm around it, I can't leave it alone.
Okay, I have one favor to ask. Can we go in and take a picture of you playing the piano? Just pick a song you love and enjoy playing, and you just pretend I'm not there and just play it. Okay, I've paused it.
I'll try. I haven't been practicing very much lately.
It's okay. I don't care. I just want you to sit down and...
You don't care.
I won't even tell you.
don't care,
I
but
won't even
do.
tell you when I put it on. I'll turn it on only. I gotta stop this. I don't know if I know how. How do you stop it?